Welcome back everyone for some more Apollo Justice Ace Attorney here on Nintendo Switch. And this is already episode 30 of this series, which I know this game's just about to end right after this particular case, but it doesn't feel like I've done 30 episodes of this series already, but this is the one where we get to see exactly Phoenix Wright's fall from grace from the defense bench, but yeah, we're going to find out exactly who this decisive witness is, and we're going to see exactly what happened that made Phoenix get stripped of his attorney's badge. But before we do that, hope you guys are having an awesome day today. Hope you guys doing well. And as much as I dread doing this, we have to continue with this, so without further ado, April 19th, 11:21 a.m., District Court, Defendant Lobby number 2. Very impressive, Mr. Wright. I have to say, I expected nothing less. We've only just begun. I was hoping you would tell me a bit more about what happened, actually. I did not think you would believe me if I told you. Better that you discover the truth for yourself. I was thinking of you, you know. I think we need less thinking and more talking. That night in the hospital, what really happened? Ah, the way your eyes gleam, Mr. Wright. You'll scare Trucy. Speaking of which, where is she? You have seen the problem yourself. The letter. The one shot in the forehead. One, right? Yes, and the reason he speaks of. I could not deny my mentor's wishes even if it meant my own death. Why not? This is something I will not say. For now, at least. What's this for now business? I have done many things in my life, some well, some poorly. But this is a cross we must bear alone to our graves. We? You wanted to know about the night of the incident? Fine, this guy sure likes to take his time getting the important stuff. Of course, I had no intention of shooting my mentor. I snuck into his room that night at the appointed time, and found there upon his bedside table 2 pistols. 2? Yes, the one I had used on stage, and the one that had been used by my partner, Valen. Oh, for the Zack and Valen's quick draw thing? My mentor had the look of one sleeping. I stood by his bedside, hearing only a light sound of his breathing. Then I took the pistol into my hand. I cannot deny that my resolve faltered then for a moment. You faltered? You mean you thought about shooting him? Recall there was a reason I could not refuse his request. His last such request, though not his first. So, there were other requests you couldn't refuse before? To be honest, I've not always been steadfast, and I fear I brought pain upon Trucy. Was McAfee coercing his disciples somehow? That's what was going on at Troop Grammary. Yet, in the end, I did not shoot him. Instead, I turned and shot the clown. I took the pistol I had fired and placed it in my pocket. In your pocket? I believe if you examine the bullet in the clown's head, you will find it to be different than the one in my mentor. What were those called? Rifling marks. Yes, well, that is all I have to tell you concerning the case. Concerning the case? You mean there's something else you can tell me? You are a fascinating man, Mr. Wright. Thanks. Yes, there is something. My mentor, his eyes open. What? McAfee Grammary? The old devil, he was not asleep, you see. Of course, the gunshot would have woken him anyway. And there we had our last discussion as mentor and pupil. It was not a long discussion, maybe 5-10 minutes or so. What did you talk about? Mr. Wright, did I not just tell you? It does not concern this case. Zack Grammary, he seems pretty steadfast to me. Or maybe just stubborn. Mr. Wright, your presence is requested in the courtroom. Once again, I am in your hands. Right, let's get back in there. April 19th, 11:37 a.m., District Court, Courtroom number 7. Court is now back in session. During a recess, a bullet was found in and dug from the clown's head. Well, this is news, and the rifling marks? There wasn't time to do a detailed analysis, though they did find the weapon type matches the murder weapon. Well, that's not very conclusive, is it? Which is why I'm about to call my very decisive witness. Your decisive witness? How many times have I heard those words? Though they often turn out to be far less decisive than you think. Oh, don't worry on my account. I'm quite confident this witness will do the job. After all, he is intimately acquainted with the players in our little production, being the other half of Troop Gramarye's famous duo, Zack and Valiant. Valiant Gramarye. So, we get to meet the great McAfee's other disciple. Looks younger. Perhaps we'll start by asking your name and occupation? Valiant Gramarye, magician. And you're the decisive witness, are you? You can prove your fellow student, your partner's guilt. Fate, the grand illusion, filled with traps and tricks. But wait, the shooting took place in a hospital after 11 o'clock at night. If you're a witness, does that mean you were there that late? If one were to deduce this logically, the conclusion is, yes. Okay. I always get the characters, don't I? I have an interesting fact for you. You see, several days before the crime, my witness received this. That looks very familiar. But wait. That's the same letter Zack Gramarye received. Yes, or perhaps I should say, ta-da! Order! 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 And what does it say? Surely not the same thing. Perhaps you should see for yourself. Why, it's practically the same. The court accepts this into evidence. McAfee's second letter out of the court record, letter telling Valiant to come at 11:20 p.m. This is most unusual. Exactly what was going on with you folks? What exactly was your Troop Gramarye up to? By which you mean, I'm just having trouble envisioning a man who would ask the students to kill him. Both of them, no less. It's just my opinion there, Judge. But from these letters, I'd say he was coercing them, not asking them. We walked the magician's path together, and in so doing, shared much of our lives. When people are so close, there is strain, a warping of relations, you might say. Yet this has nothing to do with the case at hand. By which you mean you're not going to tell us. Which makes me wonder even more about this reason they couldn't refuse. Well, let's get on with the testimony for starters. The defendant, Zack Gramarye, stands accused. Tell us why. Oh, I'll do more than that. For where he walks, the red roses rise singing hymns to the miracle that is magic. Fascinating, though I hardly need to remind you that the evidence could just as clearly point to you as the suspect. The letter, the murder weapon, and now the 2 bullets found at the scene. In fact, the only difference seems to be the designated time. As every magician knows, timing is everything. Yes. And now it's time to get this party fired up. Witness testimony. The night of the crime. That night, I visited the hospital room at the time McAfee requested. The smell of gunpowder hung in the room and my mentor had taken his final bow. I did not imagine my fellow student might have received the same instructions, yet a deal with the dead is still a deal. That sweet kiss, I gave it to the clown. Then I informed the doctor and the police. So you're the one who reported the crime? Indeed, I would think. This fact alone would clear my name of suspicion. Let's not jump to any conclusions. Yes, the cross-examination generally comes before the conclusions in this court. We're gonna go ahead and save. But if your testimony proves to be true, then the defendant, Zack Gramarye, is guilty. And if it wasn't Zack Gramarye, then the killer was you, Valiant. And no disappearing act will get you out of that. Cross-examination. Night of the crime. He visited the hospital the night that was requested of him. Smelled gunpowder in the room. He had taken his final bow. He didn't imagine that his fellow student would have the same instructions that it was. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and press that. There were 2 bullet holes at the scene, one in the victim and one in the clown. You're saying the one who shot the clown was you? No doubt my partner Zack has said much the same thing. Yeah, because whoever didn't shoot the clown committed murder. I'd better dig around here a bit more and see what I can turn up. Mr. Valiant, let me ask you something else concerning the crime scene, namely... Well, the number of pistols. How many pistols were there when you entered the room? By which you mean what, precisely? 2 pistols were used in Zack and Valiant Quick Draw Shoot'em, correct? One for each of you. You're well informed, yet only one of my old friends sat in the hospital room that night. What did Zack tell me back in the lobby? Of course, I had no intention of shooting my mentor. I snuck into his room that night at the appointed time, and found there upon his bedside table 2 pistols. I took the pistol I had fired and placed it in my pocket. I see no problem with that statement. Only 1 pistol was visible in the photograph of the crime scene after all. So you picked up that pistol and fired it? Indeed I did. Alakazam. Alakazing, alakaboom. Is that the number of pistols really so important? It's quite important. The number of pistols is quite important, Your Honor. Very well. We're gonna go ahead and save one more time. Please add this detail to your testimony. What can I do but obey? Only 1 pistol was in the hospital room that night. With it, I shot the clown. And with that... Objection! According to the defendant, Zach Ramery, when he entered the room, there were 2 pistols on that table. 2? One of those pistols he used to shoot the clown in the forehead. Then he left with it in his pocket. Of course, this is what he would say. Unlike the hapless clown, we must assume our defendant has some brains in his head. Well, what about Mr. Valent has told us? You see, there's something about his testimony that doesn't make sense. What might that be? I told you, I took the pistol that was there and shot the clown. That's your story, at least. But the rifling marks tell a very different story, Mr. Valent. Recall what Prosecutor Gavin told us. We compared the bullet taken from the victim's skull with a bullet fired from this gun. The rifling marks and the bullet were a perfect match. Ah. Mr. Valent, if you fired this pistol, then you shot the victim in the forehead. Order, order, order! Well, this is all rather sudden. Objection! What have I done? Prosecutor Gavin? I owe the court an apology. Sorry. Sorry for what? You see, I was unaware that 2 of these unique pistols were crafted. The analysis of the rifling marks only proved the type of gun that fired them. Objection! But that's not what you told us before. You said you'd verified the murder weapon. Which is why I'm apologizing to you now, quite sincerely I might add. Would you hold me accountable for a mistake made in my youth? That was just this morning. I'm still young, and I might add, it wasn't really my fault. If the defendant had only admitted he took 1 pistol from the scene of the crime, we would not be having this pleasant discussion now. Valent Grammary? Yes, Your Honor. You were presented to this court as a decisive witness, but you proved it more divisive than decisive. Objection! You'll see in time. The testimony so far has merely been a review of the facts. The proof comes next. Care to elaborate, Prosecutor Gavin? When Mr. Valent entered the hospital room, the victim had already been shot. As his next testimony will prove, right, the real fight is about to begin. Bring it. Very well. The witness will now testify to the court. Help us determine who shot what. Witness testimony. Who shot what? I arrived in the hospital room at the appointed time, which is to say 11:20 p.m. After discovering the body, I fulfilled my obligation, then called in the doctor. The doctor examined the body before the police arrived. He was quite clear about the time of death, 11:10 p.m., and the one in the room at the time was my partner, not me. Those times are rather close, you have to admit. You talk about an alibi established over a matter of minutes. To use a 10-minute discrepancy as the basis of your alibi. It's easy to explain this situation there, Judge. For example, take our debut hit single, 13 Years Hard Time for Love. Cue to the song, press the play button, it will play for 2 minutes, 15 seconds. Do it 100 times, the result is the same. Their debut single is only 2 minutes and 15 seconds long? What a ripoff. Magic is a word of utmost precision. Hocus pocus requires admirable focus, and at the time of death determined by the doctor there is an incontrovertible truth. Very well. The prosecution warns us that we're dealing with rather precise times. We can expect a cross-examination to require the same level of precision. I would hope the defense refrains from its customarily broad, sweeping accusations, lest we blur the focus this case so clearly demands. Point taken. Baseless remarks will result in a penalty. Carry on, Mr. Ray. Carry on. Ray. Cross-examination. Who shot what? He arrived in the hospital room at a point in time, which is 11:20. After discovering the body, he fulfilled his obligation and called the doctor. He examined the body before the doctor examined the body before it's quite clear about the time of death. I don't think I'm stepping out on a limb to say I have some doubts about this. How could the doctor be so precise with the time? We do usually only get an estimated time of death, true. I'm not sure I've heard of a verified time of death. Magic revels in making the complex appear simple, but reality is the opposite. What appears complex in this case is a simple matter of subtraction. I see another person has done their arithmetic homework. The point here is the IV the victim was taking. It's quite visible in the photograph of the scene. Recall what we heard earlier about the victim, Magnify Grammarly's schedule. Every night at 11, Magnify took an IV drip for 30 minutes. I can see the IV bag right there, yes. Now look a little closer. Follow the tube down from the bag to the end. Ah, the needle's been removed. Doubtlessly, it fell out when he was shot. That would seem to be the case. When the needle comes out, the IV no longer drips. Ah, you could just measure the remaining IV liquid. Precisely. The IV liquid functions, for our purposes, as an hourglass of sorts. This is how the doctor determined the time of death. From the amount remaining in the bag, it was determined that the IV had stopped 10 minutes after administration began. IV report added to the court record approximately 10 minutes had passed since the IV began. And so it was, when I, Valiant, entered that room. 10 minutes had passed since that horrible crime was committed. And this is proof. Well, Mr. Ray, we're gonna go ahead and save. Did that seem important? I think so. Well, seeing how it is the biggest clue we have to the time of the death, I'd say it's very important. Agreed. It would be hard to imagine a more precise way to determine the time. Behold the power of arithmetic. Very well. The witness will add this detail to his testimony. Sometimes the most magical thing of all is the truth. The water of life springs not eternal. The remaining IV liquid proves my innocence. Did you notice the IV yourself, by any chance? When first I entered the room, the stench of gunpowder assailed me. Next, the mark of death upon my mentor's forehead. And then his left arm did, I spy, arose drooping and wilted. Its thorn, the discarded IV needle. Knocked from the vein by the force of the shot, luckily for you. If that IV had not been there, why, you might be a suspect. Indubitably so. I might say it's thanks to my lucky color. Your lucky color? Indeed, even today I wear it proudly upon my suspect self. For it always, without fail, brings me luck. Why, when Zack and Valiant won their first Magician's Grand Prix, yes, the very one held by the Association of International Magicians, I was adorned in this attire then, too, and our trophy, a bus. Ah, what a day that was. This is one trip down memory lane no one needs. My lucky color, yes indeed, and an IV, too. I say, I think 'twas viewed especially for me, Valiant. That does seem to be the case, indeed. Well, Mr. Ray, any thoughts on this testimony? Valiant sure looks happy with himself. Okay, how about this lucky color testimony? There's a contradiction. It certainly sounds like your lucky colors brought you plenty of luck, but not this time. Mr. Valiant, your lucky colors betrayed you. I'm afraid you've lost me. Your Honor, the witness's testimony just now clearly contradicts the evidence. What? Please recall my warning at the beginning of this cross-examination, Mr. Wright. Baseless accusations will be duly penalized. I do hope this latest accusation is well-based. Don't worry, I've got all your bases right here. Very well, let's hear the defense's claim. Where is your evidence that contradicts what Mr. Valen has told us? Well, what about the crime scene photo? The crime scene tells all, Your Honor. The photo of the crime scene? All this talk of color has me yearning for black and white, clear-cut simplicity. Tell us, Wright, just where is the contradiction in this photo? My pleasure, and I assure you, it's quite simple. But I can't promise anything in black and white. Let's hear what Mr. Wright has to say. What in this photo contradicts the witness's testimony? Well, what about the IV itself? Valen Grammary, let's get one thing straight about your lucky color. It's yellow, yes? Kinda takes the mystery out of it, but yes. Something wrong with yellow, Mr. Wright? Yes, there is. Decisively wrong, in fact. Take another look at the photo of the crime scene. Well, what's this? Confusion. Dal, tell us, what do your elderly eyes spy? Even my elderly eyes can see a problem here, Mr. Valen. Look at that IV bag. Ugh. But what is this? What foul magic? It would be hard to call the IV liquid yellow, and I'm afraid no magic was involved in taking this photograph. Ah. Alacat. Well. Order, order, order! What does this mean? Objection! This is some kind of mistake. Yes, Prosecutor Gavin. Your witness's mistake. The greener they are, the harder they fall. I suppose there's no substitute for experience. Valen Grammary, as you reminded us several times, your lucky color is yellow, but the IV is clearly not. Well, this contradiction can mean only one thing. And to think, you almost had me. I see your true colors now, Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright. Something you'd like to tell us, Prosecutor Gavin? As far as this court can tell, the witness's testimony does contradict the evidence. Yes, a contradiction. One that I shall be pleased to hand right back to Mr. Wright. How do you mean? How? Because the witness has made no mistakes. I agree, at a glance the IV liquid does appear sort of greenish-yellow, but I assure you the liquid itself is quite yellow. Yellow liquid? How can you say that? As far as I can tell from this photo, it's green. Yes, but what color is the IV bag itself? The bag? You mean the plastic bag on the hook? It looks like I want to say light blue? Precisely. Figured it out yet? Put a yellow liquid in a blue bag and you get green. This, incidentally, is the liquid's true color. I see. Your explanation does have the ring of truth to it. Objection! As I thought. There's no substitute for experience, Prosecutor Gavin. What? You may tell a good tale. But you've just proven something rather grave. For you, that is. Grave? The liquid in the IV is yellow, yes? But how did this witness know that? It's quite unnatural when you think about it. You did think about it, didn't you? Your Honor, the defense requests an explanation from the witness. At the scene of the crime, the liquid IV appears to be green. So let me ask, how did the witness know the IV liquid was actually yellow? Order, order, order! Mr. Wright, you will explain this at once. And let me save while we listen to this awesome music one more time. The witness clearly knew the color of the IV liquid, so I'm sure it means something, but what? I can think of only one possibility, Your Honor. The witness, Valen Grammary, hey there, Colsmer, has testified the IV liquid was yellow because, excuse me, You can either say two things, actually. You can either say he'd seen it before, or he knew the IV liquid's color. I'm going to say that he knew the IV liquid's color. From the facts before us, the answer is clear. The witness knew that the IV liquid was yellow. Why? Because he'd seen it before. But not inside the blue bag we see in the photo. He saw the liquid by itself in a clear, colorless bag. I suppose he would have had too, but I'm still not clear as to what all this means. Ask yourself, why would he know, and if he didn't work at the hospital? That's where you'll find your meaning, Your Honor. Objection! I'm afraid I find nothing. So, what if he knew the IV liquid's color? Leave the getting excited over absolutely nothing to our teeny bopper fans, yeah? Objection! The IV liquid is the only existence proving the time of death. A 30-minute hourglass or 20 minutes worth of sand remaining. Your claim, Prosecutor Gavin. I remember it well. However, there's a critical difference between an hourglass and an IV bag. Well, wait, I know. An hourglass uses sand, but an IV bag uses liquid. I'm right, right? As much as it pains me to say this, Your Honor, no. Unlike the sands through an hourglass, IV liquid enters the patient's body, at which point, like magic, it disappears. However, what if the amount of IV liquid had increased? You couldn't tell, could you? After all, there's no way of knowing how much went in. Objection! Let me get this straight, Ray. You're saying the witness watered down the victim's IV bag? Not with water, but with IV liquid. That's how you knew the IV liquid was yellow. No, wait, I said wait. How might an amateur such as myself essay to perform such a task? Objection! I'm an amateur too, but I can pour water into a cup. Objection! I'm afraid there's quite a big difference between a cup and an IV bag. Quite. Can you prove our witness is capable of such a feat? He has a point, amateurs. I at least would have some difficulty pouring IV liquid in that bag. You don't need to be an expert to see the look on the witness's face. He added liquid to the IV to throw off the time of death. I tire of these fairy tales lacking evidence. Well, Mr. Ray, I need solid evidence to bring us back down to earth. Valiant Grammarly, I'm afraid your magic won't serve you well in a life of crime. Might I ask what you're strongly suggesting? Magic relies on props, and props become evidence. Our witness was certainly able to increase the amount of IV liquid in the bag. All he had to do was work with a little magic, and the prop was... this. The victim's syringe. It's the perfect prop for the magically increasing IV trick, and easy enough for an amateur to use. Objection! But what kind of evidence is that? The syringe is clean, not a trace of liquid in it. Objection! And don't you find that odd, Prosecutor Gavin? But what? The victim had the syringe to administer his insulin shots. There should have been traces of insulin left inside. Well, Valiant Grammarly, as you pointed out yourself, the IV liquid makes the perfect clock. One that you could manipulate at will. Well, I do believe, well, with this being his first, that the burden in this trial has been a bit too much to bear for Prosecutor Gavin. I'm afraid that while there is a doubt as to the amount of IV liquid in that bag, the time of death cannot be proven. And that brings our trial to a close for today. Well, maybe I can squeeze an extra day out of this. I can do a little much-needed investigation work. I see there are no objections. Court... Objection! Truly, there's no substitute for experience. Nothing blinds one to the truth so efficiently. A word to the wise. Underestimate the young and they'll sweep your feet out from under you, in a way you never ever expected. You see, I know exactly what you're thinking. What's he talking about? You say the witness used the syringe to manipulate the level of the IV liquid, but there is no proof. There's no proof he didn't do it either. Yes, quite true. Huh? He's admitting it? Nor was this witness quite as decisive as I'd hoped. This I admit. After all, why linger in the past when the future holds so much? You have something in mind, Prosecutor Gavin? Proof, fair judge. I have another way to prove my case. With evidence, no less. What's this? This is the victim, McAfee Grammarly's diary. Diary? After going into the hospital, McAfee began writing his memoirs, it seems. The story of his birth, his startling debut, and of meeting his disciples. It seems he intended for the last chapter to end quite appropriately with his death. Wait, that book doesn't say what the reason was, does it? The reason why his disciples couldn't refuse his last request? Sadly, it does not. What's important here is on the last page. Apparently, the victim wrote in his journal that night, even after the IV had begun at 11 p.m. Let's read it, shall we? Tonight's IV is in, maybe the last. I leave the rest to them. The first should come soon. This journal may end here, or it may go on, but not long. That depends on his hand. All that is left to mine is to lay down this pen. This does appear to have been written just before his death. The court accepts this into evidence. McAfee's diary added to the court record. A memoir of sorts, written up just before he died. Read the very last part with particular care. This journal may end here, or it may go on, but not long. That depends on his hand. Of course, by his, he refers to our defendant, Zach Grammarly. That would make sense, yes. He was the first scheduled visitor, after all. But look at what he said before that. This journal may end here, it may go on. It may go on. McAfee Grammarly intended to write again. That is, if Zach Grammarly didn't pull the trigger. I see the defense understands the meaning of this. The victim's diary does not go on. It ends. Because McAfee's life was brought to an end by the defendant, Zach Grammarly. Order, 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 Prosecutor Gavin. Okay, let me check something for a second. Nope. Are you certain that McAfee Grammarly wrote this? There is no mistaking his handwriting. Well, this does seem to be significant. According to this, McAfee did intend to continue his diary. Yet if his diary ended here, which plainly it did, then the one who pulled the trigger was the first visitor, Zach Grammarly. Well, how do you like me now, Ray? Still too green for your taste? He's right about the diary being pretty clear. Still, I find it hard to believe that he'd overlook such an obvious problem as precious evidence. Well, Mr. Wright? This is where it starts to go down. The witness's testimony we heard was lacking, but put together with his evidence, it seems quite sufficient for a case. If the diary is accepted like this, the trial is over. Maybe it's time for me to show him something. Okay, this is where everything goes down. I'm left with no choice but to show my own evidence. What? You have some evidence that overturns his diary? It's not too late to rethink this and avoid more embarrassment. Very well, please show us your evidence, Mr. Ray. Incidentally, don't even think of showing us this diary I've just shown the court. Now that we've come this far, I hope you have something a little more decisive. Show us evidence that proves the victim's continued writing his diary. Alright, I'd be happy to. The decisive evidence proving that the diary didn't end with this page is... And I'm doing this as if this was going on because Phoenix did not know this at the time, but of course we do now. This is probably the piece of evidence that I dread presenting the most of this entire series. But I have to present the notebook page just because that's how the story sadly unfolds. No pun intended. First, take a close look at this diary. Note that a page has clearly been ripped out. What's this? I hadn't noticed that at all. That's why we're still here talking about this. As it just so happens, I have here what I believe to be the missing page. Alaka, I don't believe it. Looking at this page, it's hard to imagine that the first visitor that night shot back the Grammary. That's the defense's position. Wait, let me see that. What, Sam Hill? Why, this is the continuation of the victim's diary. And here it comes. Note the torn edge of the page. It's a perfect match with the torn remains of the last page of McAfee's diary. Quite remarkable. Would you care to explain what all this means, our attorney? The diary continued after his first visitor came, which means that the victim was still alive after Zach Grammary left, leaving no one to take his life but the second visitor. Violent Grammary. No. No! The handwriting, too, matches that on the other pages. This is, without a doubt, the genuine article. Order, order, order! But wait, that's impossible. That old man couldn't have written that.
Objection!
Finally. You just couldn't resist. Could you, alright? Resist what? Presenting solid evidence? Judge? Yes, Prosecutor Gavin? Might I request we put the current cross-examination on hold? The prosecution would like to call a new witness. But Prosecutor Gavin, this evidence overturns current witnesses. I ask only to put it on hold. Please, my new witness has a very, very important piece of testimony to give. 5 minutes, no more. I promise, Your Honor. Well, if you put it that way, Mr. Wright, what's your take on this? Well, Your Honor, judging from his enthusiasm, we'll have to hear this new testimony sooner or later anyway, so it might as well be sooner. Then, though this is highly, highly irregular, we will put the current cross-examination on hold. The witness may step down. Now, Prosecutor Gavin, please bring the surprise witness to the courtroom. I had a bad feeling just then. That ripped-out page was too obvious. He must have known. And I should have known it was a bad sign all around. And you should recognize who's on the stand. It happens to be the victim of the current case we're doing. Holding trial with no audience is a first, even for me, Prosecutor Gavin. I beg the court's understanding. But I had to make a judiciary deal with the witness to secure his testimony. A judiciary deal? The details of his testimony may have some legal ramifications, shall we say. I thought it best to contain the information to this room. Very well, and you are the witness, I gather? Ah, yes. Yes, sir. State your name and occupation for the record. My name's Drew Misham. I'm a painter. A painter? And you are somehow related to this case? No, well, not per se. I have one simple question for this witness. Mr. Misham, was it? Do you know what this is? Oh, yeah. I know it well. How is that possible? Have you seen this diary page somewhere before? Oh, yeah. I mean, I made it. You... what? You made it? Yes. You might call it one of my works. The prosecutor's office received a tip-off yesterday. Illegal evidence has been prepared for the trial of Zach Grammary. Illegal evidence? I initiated an investigation and found this witness. A painter to the world at large, Drew Misham has another side, you might say. He is skilled in making perfect reproductions of certain things. Forgeries, in other words. Forgeries? Well, so we are to understand that this page here is a fake, prepared by a certain defense attorney.
Objection!
Hold it! I didn't prepare this evidence.
Objection!
Ah, the attorney speaks. Something about this page, I presume. But what is he saying? It makes no sense. After all, it was you who presented this evidence to us, Phoenix, right? Witness, Mr. Misham, was it? Who requested this forgery? Who was your client? That, I don't know. What? Most of my clients prefer to remain anonymous, even to me. I make the items they want and receive my payment. That's the extent of my contact with them.
Objection!
But... There's no proof this is a fake. It's a fake. Huh? To avoid just this sort of problem, I always put a special mark on my works. I can say, without a doubt, this is mine. Mr. Wright, you have just presented illegal evidence to this court. My court. It was careless of me. That's all I can say. Oh, old boy. Here. What's this? I don't know. I just got it over there in the hall. They told me to give it to the old boy in the blue suit with the spiky hair. They said it was really important. It was all a trap. A fatal trap. Mr. Wright? Yes? Do you have an explanation for yourself? If I did, would the court hear it? Probably not. Forging evidence is a serious crime, and presenting it in court a serious mistake. A fatal mistake for an attorney. Fatal, too, perhaps, for your client, I fear. Tell me, what kind of defendant relies on forged evidence? The answer is quite clear. A guilty one.
Objection!
Your Honor, wait. I understand that presenting forged evidence in the court is a serious crime, but you cannot hold my client responsible for actions I undertook as an individual. I'm sorry, Mr. Wright. Your Honor? Another close call, I dare say. If the prosecutor's office hadn't received a hot tip, everything would have gone the way you wanted it to, yeah? I even gave you a chance. Too bad you decided not to think before embarrassing yourself. I see no need of further discussion on this matter. Special witness dismissed. Mr. Attorney? Yes? Could I ask your name? Phoenix Wright. Mr. Wright? I have seen and studied many people, but none like you. I'll remember you, Mr. Wright. Though I deeply regret having to declare a verdict in this way. This trial is over. You have the right to find a new attorney and make an appeal. However, this court must... Ah, Your Honor? Yes, Mr. Zack? There is one thing I wish to make clear. Today, in this courtroom, you cannot declare me guilty. It is impossible. I'm afraid the defendant is quite mistaken. I most certainly have the authority to declare a verdict on you. Except, tell me, how do you plan on announcing your verdict when your defendant does not exist? Doesn't exist? What are you talking about? I am talking about this. But Mr. Enigma, the defendant's escaped. Find him, quick. Bailiff, close all exits from the building. On a double, he must not be allowed to escape. That day, in that courtroom, a miracle occurred. The defendant, Shady Enigma, aka Zack Gramery, did not just escape from court. He literally, unbelievably, vanished. Right before the bailiff's eyes. No one ever saw him again. Not since that day. This is the Gramery miracle. No verdict was declared. After all, the defendant didn't exist. That's how it happened. The trial of magician Zack Gramery vanished, along with him for all eternity. The mysteries that remained behind were all solved, however, but not until 7 years later. That was hard to do. Wow. But at least we know what happened 7 years ago now. But the next time I see you guys, we are going to be starting day 2 of the investigation. But this is unlike any investigation we've done so far in the Ace Attorney series. I'm sure you recall the very beginning episode of this particular case, you saw the Mason system. Well, we're going to be doing that in order to do our investigation of sorts, and you'll see what we mean in the next episode. But we are going to go ahead and save our progress now. But yeah, the next time I see you guys, we'll be doing something different, and that does involve the Mason system, so hope you guys look forward to that. But thank you guys so much for watching this. Hope you guys are enjoying the series so far. I'll be seeing you guys again next time.